Hello, welcome back to another AP3 video, and in today's video we'll be going over SAT math problems, more specifically hard problems that are gonna pop up on the November SAT. I made a video previously relating to the October SAT, and I got like 4 out of 8 questions correct. So today, hopefully, I get most of the questions correct. I'll probably pop up on the SAT. So this is kind of like my predictions, but it's mainly questions that I've seen many times that pop up on the different SATs, either in August, October, May, June, or even March. So we'll be doing only hard questions in different topics, so algebra, geometry, you name it, we have it for this specific video. And let's dive in right away. So we're doing a geometry question because we have 3 triangles technically. So in the figure below, QM and NR intersect at point P, and MP equals QP. And MP equals PR. What is the angle measured degrees of QMR? Disregard the degree symbol when grading the information. Okay, let's use the information given. I'm given that MQ and NR intersect at point P. I'm given that NP equals QP, and I'm also given that MP equals PR. Let's notice something right away. They're telling me that MP equals PR. So I'm doing a highlighter. So here equals here. What does that mean? Because in a triangle, we have 2 sides that equal the same length. Therefore, the highlighted triangles, let me do the bottom portion. So this triangle is an isosceles triangle. Therefore, an isosceles triangle has 2 equal sides. So let me erase this, and I'm gonna describe it or name it isosceles. I don't know how to spell it, so I'm just gonna write ISO. A little bit weird, I know. I'm not really the best at spelling with these words, so I'm just gonna write ISO. Isosceles. So now we just gotta figure out QMR. So M is over here. And the good thing about isosceles triangles is that if 2 sides equal the same, then 2 angle measures equal the same. And in this question, NRM is gonna equal QRM. So here is gonna equal here. Oops. Let me erase that. Basically this point over here and this point over here are gonna equal each other. But how can we find it? So now we just gotta figure out this as a little puzzle. We just gotta look for the angle measures that correspond to each point, and then we can figure out QMR. Okay, so I'm given that QPR equals 60 right over here. So what I can do is look for the angle of MPR by subtracting 180 minus 60. So if I do 180 minus 60, that equals 120 degrees. Therefore, MPR equals 120 degrees. But why am I able to do 180? Well, in a straight line, we have the angle measure of 180. Therefore, 60 plus the number equals the angle measure of 180 degrees. So the good thing about it now is in this specific triangle, right, we determine that it is an isosceles triangle. So like we said, in an isosceles triangle, the 2 lengths equal the same and 2 angle measures equal the same. Therefore, M and R have the same angle measure, and we can look for both of them by subtracting 180 minus 120 and dividing the angle degree given divided by 2 to figure out M and R. So if I do 180 minus 120 degrees, that equals 60 degrees. What does that mean? So what does that mean exactly? 60 degrees equals M plus R, because they both have the same angle measure. They both equal each other because they're an isosceles triangle. Therefore, I would want to do 60 divided by 2, which gives me 30 degrees. Therefore, my angle measure of QMR equals 30. So QMR equals 30 degrees. Okay, let's do another geometry question. A circle in an xy plane has its center at -6, -4. Line K is tangent to the circle at the point -7, -7. What is the slope of K? So I'm given that we have a circle. So let me draw a circle right over here. And I'm given we have the center of -4, -6. So center of -4 and -6. What I'm also given is that line K is tangent to the circle at point -7, -7. So I'm gonna do it in green. So I'm gonna have a point roughly around here that's -7 and -7. And we have line K that is tangent to the circle point of -7, -7. How does a line look, a tangent line look like in a circle? It kind of looks like this. Intersects the circle at exactly 1 point. And then why is that important for this type of question to look for a slope of line R? Well, let me redraw the points for the center. And as we can see, right, because it's in the because we have the center point -4, -6, I can draw a line here, here, and here. Regardless of whatever, any point in the circle that lands in the middle, that gives me the radius. And that is important to look for the slope of K. Because, as we can see, if I draw the line R of the radius over here, and then the line K as given, I kind of have, let me make this a little more straight. I have two lines that are intersecting kind of like a plus sign. So it kind of looks like this. And why is that important? Well, when two slopes intersect that makes like an X or a plus sign, that means that the slopes are reciprocal. What does that mean exactly? So let's say, for example, I have an equation of y equals, let's say I have 5x plus 11. The reciprocal would be the opposite sign and in the opposite fraction. So it'd be y equals -1/5x plus, let's say, 36. If you look at our slope of 5 and -1 divided by 5, I can see that they have opposite signs and the fractions are opposites because we have 5 and we have 1 divided by 5. And we plug that into Desmos, we're going to get the lines intersecting at exactly 1 point as like an X or a plus. Therefore, the slopes are reciprocal. And this is the type of question. Anytime that it gives you that line K is tangent to the circle and we're looking for a slope of K, the slope of the radius is always going to be reciprocal to the slope of the line K, or the line K is going to be reciprocal to the slope of the radius. But how can we look for a slope of either or? Well, I can look for my slope of the radius actually, because I'm given 2 points. I'm given -4, -6, and -7, -7. So what I can use is use my slope formula, which if you don't know that, that's y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1, and that basically gives me the slope of the radius. And as we can see, x2 and y2 are always the biggest values. And as we can see in this example, the -4 is greater than -7, and -6 is greater than -7 in the y-axis. Therefore, -4, -6 is my x2 and y2 values, and the -7s are my x1 and y1 values. So now I plug it into the equation. So y2 equals -6, so -6 with the y1, so -7, which turns into +7, and then divided by x2, which is -4. Same thing, so it'll be -4 plus 7, which equals -6 plus 7 equals +1, and a -4 plus 7, that equals +3. Therefore, my slope of the radius, so slope of R equals 1 divided by 3. And let's look at the example that I wrote. We saw that for it to be reciprocal, or for two slopes to be perpendicular, which is the slopes that we're going to use for this question, they're reciprocal, so they're opposites. And if we look at our slope of radius, it equals 1, 3. Therefore, because it's positive, our slope of K needs to be negative, and it needs to be the opposite fraction of 1/3. Therefore, the slope of K equals -3, making my answer A. So let's do another geometry question. This question is a little bit difficult, but once you understand the rule that we're going to use and the rule and the steps to figure it out, it's not that bad, even though it's going to look bad. So the graph of x squared plus x and then plus y squared plus y equals 189 divided by 2. and the xy plane is a circle. What is the length of the circle's radius? So what are we looking for? The circle radius. But we can't look for it in the equation that's given. We need to simplify that into the circle, the equation, the equation of a circle. And how does that look like? Well, if you guys haven't seen the previous videos, that is completely okay. So the circle equation is written as x minus, it's either h or k. I get confused with each. So we're just going to say x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So before I do any math, let's understand every single point. So the x minus h gives me my x value in the center, so it'd be positive h, and the same thing goes with y. So my positive k is my y value of the center. So hk is the center of the circle. And r squared gives me the radius, or r is the radius. So r equals radius, and this is the center point. I just want to explain it to you guys so you guys can understand, like, you know, how the equation represents, what does it show, and what information is important to you guys for you guys to understand. So now let's actually solve the question. All right, I'm gonna rewrite what we have. X squared plus x plus y squared plus y equals 199 divided by 2. So the rule that we're going to be using here is b minus 2 squared. And why do we want to use that? Well, as we can see, I have an x squared and then plus x. We are very close to have a quadratic equation for both x values and y values. Therefore, I want to write both as two quadratic equations so we can complete the square and simplify it into the circle of equation. But in order to write the quadratic equation, I need to have a c value. And as I can analyze it, I have the a and b value of 1 for both x and y's, but I don't have a c, and that's what we want to look for. So I'm going to rewrite it as x squared plus x plus blank, so blank is c, plus y squared plus y plus blank equals 199 divided by 2. So now what I want to do is figure out my b value. And our b value is the number that is in front of the coefficient. And if we can see both x and y, I have the b value of positive 1. So now what I want to do is plug it into the green, like what I wrote in green, the formula or the rule, to figure out my c value for both my x and y because they have the same a and b value. So if I plugged it in, I'm going to get 1/2 to the power of 2, which equals 1 divided by 4. Therefore, my c value for both the x and y is equals 1/4, and my a value just equals 1. And the a value is the number that is in front of the x squared. In this case, we have x squared and y squared. Because there's no number in front of it, it's just 1. So now I'm going to add the 1/4 to both the x and the y value. So I'm doing it in yellow. So x squared plus x plus 1/4, and then y squared plus y plus 1/4, and 192. But notice how I added two 1/4s on the left side. Whatever I add on the left side, I need to add it on the right side. Therefore, I'm going to have the equation now. So I'm going to write it over here as x squared plus x plus 1/4 plus y squared plus y plus 1/4, which equals 199 divided by 2, plus, and if we simplify two 1/4s, that just equals 1/2. So 199 plus 1/2. And if I combine like terms on the right side, that just gives me 200 divided by 2, which equals 100. Or 100, sorry, so 100. Can I solve for my radius? Yes, I can. But I want to show it how to simplify it into the circle of equation, and then we can figure out our radius value. But we can find a radius value with the information given. So what I want to do is complete the square for both the x and the y value. And the way to rewrite that for both is x plus 1/2 squared for the y's, so for the x, and the same thing for the y's. Then plus y plus 1/2 squared, which equals 100. And as we can see, we have the circle of equation. So if you look at 100, 100 equals radius squared. And I can solve my radius now. So if I do 100 equals radius squared, if I do square root on both sides, I'm going to get r equals 10, and that is indeed my answer. So radius equals 10. I say that you can solve it right over here where I'm drawing dots because it's basically written in a circular equation because it's just expanded, not condensed. As we can see over here, it's condensed, but if we multiply the x and the y's, it just expands to what I wrote in dots over here. I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's move on to algebra questions. A number x is at most 2 less than 3 times the value of y. If the value of y is -4, what is the greatest possible value of x? So what does it mean by at most? That basically means that x is either less or equal to the value of 2 less than 3 times the value of y. If it said at least, then the x value is greater or equal to whatever the information that's given. In this case, when it says at most, we're gonna have like this is like an inequality question. So at most will look like this. So x is less or equal to, and we're given that x is at most 2 less than 3 times the value of y. So how can I rewrite that? So it's at most 2 less than 3 times the value of y. So I can write that as 3 multiplied by y minus 2. So I can write that as 3y minus 2. And now I have my inequality. X is less or equal to 3y minus 2. And we're given that my y value is -4. And what is our greatest possible value of x? Well, if I plug in -4, I'm going to get x is less or equal to 3 multiplied by -4 and minus 2, which x equals, or x is less or equal to -14. So what is our greatest value? Well, it could be equal to the value on the right side. And because it's -14, our greatest value of x could be x equals -14. And that is indeed our answer. If you know what at most means and you know how to make an equation, this question is pretty simple. Okay, let's do another question. In the x or y plane, line K is defined by x plus y equals 0. Line J is perpendicular to line K, and the y-intercept of line J is 0, 3. Which of the following is an equation of line J? Okay, so there's a lot of information here that's important that can make me realize my answer. So I'm given that line J is perpendicular to line K. So like we said before, perpendicular means that they're opposite reciprocals. So we're going to have we're just going to write reciprocals. And we're given that it has the line J has the y-intercept of 0, 3. So what does that mean? That basically means when x equals 0, I get y equals +3. So before I do anything, let's go through every single answer of A, B, C, and D and make sure when I plug in x equals 0, I get +3. If I do the first one, I'm left with y equals 3, so that makes the statement true. If I do B, I'm going to get y equals -3, so this is incorrect. If I do C, I'm going to get y equals -3, so this is also incorrect. And if I solve for D, I'm going to get -y equals -3, and because we have both negatives, we can divide both by negative, and we're left with y equals +3. So A and D are possible answers for this question. But we're given that line J is perpendicular to line K. So whatever slope line K is, it's the opposite reciprocal. So let's look for the slope of line K. So if I leave y by itself and move the x to the left side, I'm left with y equals -x. So -x can be written as -1. And the reciprocal of that is just positive. So y equals +x. So I want to look for both equations and make sure I get a positive x, not a negative x, when I move it to the left side. Let's solve for A. If I move x to the left side, I get y equals -x plus 3. We do have the y-intercept the same. However, we have the same slope as line K. Therefore, A is incorrect. But let's fact check to make sure that D is correct. So if I move x to the right side, or subtract x on both sides, I'm left with -y equals -x minus 3. And if I divide everything by -1, I get, if I divide everything by -1, I'm gonna get y equals positive x plus 3. As we can see, I have the y-intercept of 3, and I have the slope that is the opposite reciprocal of line k. Therefore, my answer is D. Okay, let's do another question. This question is written weird. So we actually have two equations. We have 6 plus 7r equals pw, and then we have negative 5w equals 5w plus 11. And oh yeah, and I forgot the 7r over here, which is important for this question. So let's read it now. So we have 6 plus 7r equals pw, and 7r minus 5w equals 5w plus 11. In the given system of equations, p is a constant. If p has no solution, what is the value of p? So I love these type of questions because any constant or any number that doesn't have a variable, so x, a, b, c, and d, they don't matter. Because if I have 1, 2, I will show you an example of what I mean. If for two system of equations to equal no solution, they need to cancel out. So if I have x equals x plus 1, the x cancels out, and I'm left with 0 equals 1, no solution. If I do x equals x plus 3, I get 0, 3. And if I do x equals x, let's do negative 1,000, I'm going to get 0 equals negative 1,000. I have no x value. So any number, I'm still going to get no solution. Therefore, what I like to do, I like to rewrite it, but only have the variables. Not because that's, not because I'm not taking them out because you need to. I'm taking them out because for me, it makes it easy to understand what I'm looking for. And this very specific type of question, when they ask you for a constant of p and it's no solution, I always think that you're able to take out the numbers. You don't need to, but for me, it makes this question a lot easier. So I can rewrite it as 7r equals pw, which equals 7r minus 5w, which equals minus 5w equals 5w. So let me move every variable into the left side. So if I move everything to the left side, I'm going to get 7r minus pw, which equals 0, and then 7r minus 10w equals 0. So what I have to do is find a number of p that when I plug it in, I can make this no solution. So as I can see, both 7r's are positive, and I can manipulate one of the equations for the r's to cancel out. So let's multiply the bottom one by, let's multiply by -1. If I multiply by a negative number, I get negative 7r now, and then plus 10w, which equals 0. So the 7's cancel out. So now all I gotta look for is find the number, or find a number for constant p to make the statement true. So one number plus 10 subtracted by p gives me 0. It'll be positive 10, because if I make p equals 10, I'm gonna get negative 10w equals 0, and then plus 10w equals 0, and the w's cancel out, which makes it no solution. Therefore, p equals 10. Let's do another question. The function g is defined by g of x, which equals parentheses x plus 14 and t minus x, where t is a constant. In the x and y plane, the graph of y equals g of x passes through the point 24, 0. What is the value when g is 0, or g of 0? So let me rewrite the function that's given of g. So g of x equals x plus 14 and t minus x, and t is a constant, and we're given that it passes through the point 24, 0. So what is 24, 0? And as we can see, 24, 0 is when our y value equals 0, and if our y value equals 0, therefore this is an x-intercept. I'm not the best at, let me rewrite that. That is horrible. Oh my gosh. We have x-intercept. So now what can I do? So let me analyze the information now. So it's telling me that it passes through point 24, and t is a constant. What can I do? So if I plug in, so let's do x plus 14. So we have an x-intercept of x equals -14, because if I plug in -14 to the equation of g of x, I'm going to get g of x, or g of 14, sorry. G of 14 equals, the g of -14, sorry, so equal -14 plus 14, parentheses, and then t minus, or actually plus 14 in this example. As we can see, -14 plus 14 equals 0, and then we have t plus 14. Any number multiplied by 0 equals 0, so g of -14 equals 0. And when I plug in g of 24, I should get 0 as well. So what does my number t have to be? Well, it's going to have to be 24. Here's why. So if I plug in 24 minus x, and if I solve for x, I'm going to get 24 minus x equals 0. If I move 24 to the left side, I get negative x equals negative 24, and I divide everything by negative, I get x equals positive 24. Therefore, my t value, or the constant t, equals 24. So I can rewrite g of x, I'm writing green over here, as g of x equals x plus 14, and then 24 minus x. And if I plug in, and if I do g of 24, I'm going to get 0 for my y value. Therefore, t equals 24, and it makes the statement passing through point 24 correct. So what I have to do now is make x equals 0 to look for my x value, or my y value, because g of x, or any number, equals y value. So if I plug in g of 0, that equals 0 plus 14, and then 24 minus 0. So I'm just left off with 14 multiplied by 24. And if I do that, I'm going to get 240. And if I do 40, or if I do 4 times 24, that basically just equals 48 plus 48. And that gives me the value of 96. So if I do 240 plus 96, that gives me 336. And that is my value of g of 0. So my y value for g of 0 is 336, and that is our answer. Okay, let's do another question. The expression shown is where x is greater than 1 and y is greater than 1. And which one is equivalent to the following? So let me write the expression. I have x to the power of -2 multiplied by y to the power of 1/2 divided by x to the power of 1 divided by 3, and then y to the power of -1. So this question can be solved really easily if we know our power rule. So what is power rule? Anytime that I have a negative exponent, it just goes to the opposite part of the fraction. So for example, the x -2 moves into the bottom part, so then I'll have y to the power of 1/2 dividing by x1 to the power of 1/3, and then multiplying by x squared, and then multiplying by y -1. And I can do the same thing for y -1. I can add it to the top part, so I'm left off with y multiplied by y to the power of 1/2 divided by x to the power of 1/3 multiplied by x to the power squared, sorry. So they don't combine necessarily like terms, they just rewrite it. So I can rewrite 1/2 of y as y to the square root of y. And for the bottom part of x, I can rewrite it as x to the cubic root. And then let me write it over here because I don't know why that white line exists. So the square root of y, and divided by the cubic root of x, and then x squared just stays the same. And if we look at our answers, my answer corresponds to D. But how am I able to write it as a square root? Well, anytime I have, let's say, x to the power of a divided by b, that always equals the square root of b of x to the power of a, which is kind of what I did for both the 1/3 and the 1/2 for the x and y. Okay, let's do another question. The function f is defined by f of x equals parentheses x plus 3 and parentheses x plus 1. The graph of f in the xy plane is a parabola, which in the following intervals contains the x coordinate of the vertex of f. So what I want to look for is figuring out where is my interval of the x coordinates of the vertex. So what can I do? Well, I can figure out that the parabola is gonna look more than something like this, right? Where it's like a min, and then I have two x-axes that crosses. That way, I'm gonna have two x-intercepts that passes the x-axis. And I'm looking for the interval of the x-coordinate of the vertex of the graph f. The good thing about it is that to look for my intervals, I just gotta figure out my x-intercepts. And if we look at the equation f of x, as we did in the previous question, to look for x-intercepts in this format of a question, I just need to look for the values of x in the information given. And if I solve for x for both, I'm going to get x equals -3, -1. Therefore, the intervals of x is where x is greater than -3, but less than -1. Therefore, it's b. And we can figure that out as well, because if we plug in -3 or -1 to f of x, I'm going to get 0 for my y. So that's an x-intercept. But if we, let's expand the equation. So if I expand it, I'm going to get x squared. I'm doing this mentally, so plus 4x plus 3. And we got to look for the coordinates of the x values. What I can do is that I can find I can figure out if I can factor it, and I can, and I'll find x plus 3 and x plus 1, and same thing. So my answer is B. I don't know why it's written like this, but this is not an answer choice. This is like the equation that's given. So the formula above can be used, which is the one I wrote in the rectangle, or whatever shit you want to look at it. The formula above can be used to approximate the dew point D in degrees Fahrenheit, given the temperature T in Fahrenheit and the relative humidity of H%, where H is greater than 50. Which of the following expressions expresses the relative humidity in terms of the temperature and dew point? So basically, we just want to isolate H. But how can we do that with the information given? Well, what I can first do is, I'm going to rewrite it first. I'll have D equals T minus 9 divided by 25, and then 100 minus H. What I can do is subtract T on both sides, and I get T minus T, which equals -9 divided by 25, and I get 100 minus H. What I can do now is multiply both by -25 divided by 9 on both sides, so that this cancels out, and I'm just left off with 100 minus H on the right side. And then the -25 divided by 9 is multiplying the D, the dew point, and the temperature. So I'm going to have now -25 divided by 9, and then multiplying D minus T equals 100 minus H. What I can do now is move 100 to the left side, so we do minus 100 on both sides. This cancels out, and now I'm left off with -25 divided by 9, multiplying D minus T, and then minus 100. Yeah, minus 100, which equals H. So let me just rewrite this, which equals -H. Before we can answer or we can solve this question, H is still negative. So I need to multiply everything on the right side by negative, so I have H by itself. So this whole expression, multiply it by negative. And if I do that, I'm going to get H equals positive 25 divided by 9. And then the parentheses of D minus T, which stays the same. So D minus T stays the same. And I get positive 100, making my answer A. Okay, let's do this question. What is the minimum value of the function f defined by f of x equals x minus 2 squared minus 4? So the good thing about this question is that it's written in a quadratic equation form. And it's basically written right now as x minus h squared and then minus k. So our h and k value is the vertex. And as we can see, or plus k, right? So and as we can see, I have h value being 2 and then my k value being negative 4. Therefore, my vertex is 2, negative 4 when x equals 2 and when y equals negative 4. We're looking for the minimum value, not the x value. We're looking for the minimum value of y. So if we just interpret the graph, I can just see that my k value is negative 4. Therefore, my vertex, or my minimum value, is a. But I want to solve it algebraically because I think it's fun. I think it's important to know this formula that I'm about to go over right now. So let's expand the equation. If I expand it, I'm going to get x squared minus 4x. I think that's it. Yeah, because of negatives. So I'm just left with negative x squared minus 4x. So if we do negative b over 2a, which this is my vertex formula, I'm going to get my x value. I plug it into the equation, and I'll find my minimum value. So b equals negative 4, and then negative 4 multiplied by negative, I'm going to get positive 4 divided by 2a, and in this case, a equals 1. So 4 divided by 2 equals 2, and that is my x value. As we can see, it corresponds over here. So if I plug that into the equation over here, I'm going to get 4 minus 8x, or 8, sorry, which equals negative 4. And as we can see, it also corresponds here. So algebraically, and if you plug into decimals, you're going to get the same thing. But if you just analyze it quickly, you can figure it out that it's negative 4. Okay, let's do a question that we did before, but we're going to do it again because practice always makes perfect. A school district is forming a committee to discuss plans for the construction of a new high school. Of those invited to join the committee, 15% are parents of students, 45% are teachers from the current high school, 25% are school and district administrators, and the remaining 6 individuals are students. How many more teachers were invited to join the committee than school and district administrators? So as we can see, there is a committee going on, obviously, because it says right here, right? I'm given that 15% are parents, 45% are teachers, 25% are administrators, and 6 individuals are students. So how can I figure out how many people are in the total committee so I can figure out how many teachers are there, how many more teachers are there than administrators? Well, let me add the percentages and make sure that it equals 100. Because if it equals 100, then everybody's in the committee. But it doesn't equal 100, and there's something that we need to look for. So let's add all the percentages. So if I do 15 plus 45 plus 25, that gives me 85. Oops, I don't know why I'm writing 85%. Well, is this 100? No. And if I do 100 minus 85, I'm going to get 15%. So there's a 15% remaining. What can that be? That will be the remaining 6 students, the remaining 6 individuals as students, because they don't have a percentage, therefore they make up the 15%. So with this information given, I'm able to figure out how many people are in the actual committee. But how can I do that? Well, I'm given 15% and 6. And if I do 6 divided by 0.15, that gives me 40. Therefore, there's a total number of 40 people in committee. And if I do 6 divided by 40, I'm going to get 15%. So the numbers correspond to each other. So what I can do now is multiply 40 by 45%, and then 40 times 25% to figure out how many more teachers are there than administrators. So I can write an equation of 0.45 multiplied by 40 plus 0.25 multiplied by 40, because it's subtracting, and then that's going to give me how many more teachers are there as students. So if I were to do 0.45 times 40, I'm going to get roughly 18. And then if I do 0.25 times 40, that gives me 10. So there's 18 teachers and 10 administrators. And if I do 18 minus 10, that gives me 8. Therefore, there's 8 more teachers than school and district administrators. Okay, let's do another question. The number A is 190% greater than the number B. The number B is 80% less than 24. What is the value of A? What I actually want to do first is actually look for the number B. But let's digest all the information that's given. I'm given that number A is 190% greater than B. And if you write that as an equation, I'm going to get A equals B plus the percentage, so 190 divided by 100 of B. And this is my A equation. And B equals, we're given that it's 80% less than 24. So what I can do is 20% or 0.2 multiplied by 24 to find my value of B, which ultimately equals 4.8. So what I can do now is plug that into my first equation, and I can find my value of A. So A now would equal 4.8 and 190 divided by 100. Wait, plus here, sorry. Let me write that up. I made a mistake here. It would be A equals 4.8 plus 190 divided by 100 and multiplied by 4.8. And if we plug it into decimals, we'll get the answer 13.92, ultimately being B. Okay, let's do an actual question that doesn't require any math, and you'll see why. So, of the following equations, which best models the data in the scalar plot? And we're given the scalar plot below shows the amount of electricity energy generated in millions of megawatt hours by nuclear sources over a 10-year period. Okay, so let's look at it, right? So if we look at A, B, C, and D, we have a number x squared, either positive or negative. Therefore, they're all parabolas. And as we can see, if we connect all the dots over here, so if we connect it, it kind of corresponds down, right? Kind of looks like that if we continue it. Therefore, my parabola is being reflected. So what does that mean? So if I have a parabola of x squared by itself, it looks like this. But if I have a negative x squared, it goes down. Therefore, it has to be a negative number x squared. So we can cross out A and C. And now what I like to do is analyze my y-intercept. So if I make B equal, if I make B, like the x values equals 0, I'm going to get y equals negative 745.73. And then if I do that for D, I'm going to get y equals the positive value. So 745.73, just a positive value. And as I can see as my y-intercept, it mainly approaches more a positive 700 than a negative 700. Therefore, it can't be B because it's closer to positive than negative, because negative, it's not even close to negative, it's closer to positive. Therefore, my answer is B. You see? No work if we understand the concepts. Some questions are really easy if you understand how parabolas or you know your graphs by memory. Let's do the last question for this SAT review. Employees working for a customer service line at an electric company recorded all calls last Monday and noted whether the caller asked for repairs and whether the caller asked for about a bill. The results are summarized in the table below. If a caller last Monday who asked about his or her bill is selected at random, which best of the following is closest to the probability that a customer is asking for repairs? So let's go through all the information that's given and we need to look for it. So we're looking for if a caller on Monday asks for his or her bill selected at random. As we can see, the only one that they're asking for bill is this box. We never use this one, so we can just kind of remove it. And we're looking for the probability that a customer is asking for repairs. And as we can see, if we're only looking at bills, so we can cross out everything. So there's a total of 671 people asking for bills, and we're looking for the probability of the customer asking for repairs. There's 48 repairs, so what I can do is to 48 divided by 671. And this is going to give me that probability of a customer asking for a repair, which if we plug it into decimals, we're going to get 0.07%, or 0.07, or 7%, depending how you want to see it. Therefore, my answer is B. This is the last question for today. Thank you for watching.